Mastering data is like following a roadmap, navigating the complex data journey with the destination of data leadership in mind. By taking the correct paths, you'll reach your goal of career excellence in data in no time. And today, our guest, Rishabh Gupta, the head of Group Data Science at Radius, is here on this episode, which is brought to you by our friends at Amplitude, to provide the map we need to tackle data classification challenges, drive innovation, avoid common pitfalls, and reach your destination with expert advice and practical strategies. So coming up on today's episode, data management trends, challenges and pushback in data, challenges and strategies in data classifications, data technology innovations, and proactive career growth. Rishabh, I'm interested in your insights into data classifications, but first, what's your view on the trends in data management and data leadership at the moment?
A lot to unpack there, because I think the data landscape is changing quite a bit, and it's changed quite a bit in the last few years, especially. I think if I probably pick apart data management first, I think, at least from my experience, what I've seen the focus on is change a lot more from, I think, just the basic insights and basic reporting and see what we can get directly out of data, but into the organizations focusing more on the infrastructure of it as well. I know there's a lot of, again, conversations on how we want to do data governance and, more focus on data quality. I think where we're trending towards, based on what I've seen in my experience, is that even with having, an AI application or the things that people want to do with data, people are soon realizing that actually none of that is possible unless you focus more on your infrastructure. So probably more, you've seen the very crowded data AI and space with different kind of tools that can help you there, whether it's, data engineering or ETL, or you've got new terms on, data mesh and data fabric and all of that. Eventually, those tools and those kind of concepts are just focusing that you have good kind of fundamental and foundation in data. I think that's the most interesting one, at least for me, that your core and your organization of data is really strong. Otherwise, the leaders, they want to see good, cool things come out of data, but that's not really going to be accurate or possible unless, you focus on that.
And what challenges or pushback have you seen there?
Simple in theory, as I said, and that should be the focus. But I think it's also depends on what is the focus of the company at that point and at what level or what speed the organization that you're working for is maturing. So, for example, I've been part of organizations that are really behind the curve, and they actually need to focus their, let's say, bottom line and revenue on generating output right now and generating kind of revenue right now. So their focus will be actually, we need to park some of the investment aside, but needs to be on resource, giving them insights to tell them how they're doing right now and to be reactive to that. I think as the organization matures, I think you'll feel less pushback and actually getting investment and less pushback to have investment, to have more kind of predictive and proactive kind of insights, which also involves building the infrastructure. I think the one pushback, I guess what I'm indirectly talking about, is just buy-in of the organization, that they feel that that's the direction that they want to invest in and put resources, whether it's time or money, to invest in third-party products or internal resource for that.
How do you go about convincing stakeholders, for example, to allocate budget and resources for data classification initiatives?
Everyone who's a manager or leader in this space has seen that they always have to make a business case for it. I think the approach that I've applied in the past is just show the value of what you're trying to do. So whether it's doing small pilots or small use cases with different teams, just showing that what you can achieve with that. And sometimes not sometimes, actually most of the times, the third-party providers are happy for you to do a POC or proof of concept or some kind of a pilot with them, so you can demonstrate what is the value of that. And sometimes if it's a speed of the reporting that is your focus, that's going to give the value to the business, or sometimes it's the level of insights or actions, or even just your database maintenance and uptime. So it depends what facet of your organization is the pain point. And I think that is also another interesting point to unpack, because if you're in touch with the business and what exactly is the pain point of the business, that attacking that kind of problem will get the buy-in faster, and that's where you want to start.
I love that. But moving on to data classification, could you share your thoughts or experience with challenges and strategies within data classifications?
Given my experience, I've been in different kinds of organizations. I think my sweet spot is usually around businesses that are younger and smaller, so SMEs in different kind of businesses. So data classification is absolutely an issue there. Maybe worth talking about examples of maybe my current business, where I think data classification is probably going to be a very, very long-term project, because I think the case in point has been that it's a conglomerate, it's a group which is a result of 13, 15 acquisitions, where you've basically ended up with so many different silos of data, which is not really labeled with tons of metadata. So you kind of have to go and investigate and find out the source of each data. So what we probably phrase that as just following a data trail, and you see where that leads you. Now, I know there are a lot of tools that can help, classify this and help us take down this path, which is easier. But I think there ends up being a lot of the human element to these companies that I've worked with, that, it's beyond a tool to kind of resolve these issues. So sometimes it actually involves the tracking down to the data source, mapping that out, having workshops with these different teams to understand that, do we understand what this is? If no one understands what this is, no one's using it. We have to just bin some things and just taking what we need. So kind of similar to the point that I made in the previous part, to see what's giving us value. Let's take those insights and trace it back to the source. So it's been an exercise of making those data maps, making those class diagrams within the database, having the teams, having discussions with the data engineers and, the whole value chain, to see if we can really identify that's what we want to keep, and that's what we want to classify data as. Similar topic has been, I think, when, especially with GDPR, when it came around, it became very important to obviously identify and classify that and store that in a very secure way. It was even before GDPR, but I think from a regulatory point of view, that was definitely something that has high importance. With even in my current role with data science, making sure we treat that ethically and in the right way, classification plays a big role. And as I said, with the majority of the companies that you work with in this space, you'll have to, even being sort of the data science team, which we don't have a data engineering arm attached to us, we end up having to work very closely and actually guide a lot of other teams to make that journey to say, I think we're working with this data set. We think there's an opportunity here to, classify this in different ways. And I think we've discovered this, when there's again, not that existing structure to allow all of that classification to take place. So I'd say it's been difficult and more manual than we'd like to be. So I think that's probably the challenge with because of the maturity of the organization and the data that we're working with. But that's the journey we're on, and I think we want to try to push the organization towards actually seeing and taking investment in these areas.
Definitely. It's a challenge. So then, how do you get people to understand the importance of data classification?
As a team leader, is change management and transformation. I don't think, I know probably 5-10 years ago you used to call it digital transformation, or probably a lot of people still do it, but I think it's less digital transformation. It's just actually people and culture transformation, which is just taking people on that journey, that winning hearts and minds, as a lot of people like to call it, and to understand what is the benefit in me doing that. I think being able to break very complex technical ideas into simple terms is very important, because even though I think some of these terms are getting more commonplace, like a nice example is, during COVID, people used to talk about F1 score and accuracy and things like that. But obviously, a data scientist knows more about that, what that means. We're breaking down those complex ideas for a layman is important. So I'd say in this scenario, to make people understand why refactoring is important, is giving them, I think, just understanding what their interest in this problem is and what's in it for them. And if you understand what's in it for them, you really have to see that, okay, look, if you're trying to get X out of the system, I can only give you that at this rate or to that level of accuracy. But if we spend time doing that, we can do it at this percent faster. And sometimes actually you might discover the opposite, that actually that's not their motivation. And they might come around to you and say, actually, this is not important to me anymore. If you can give this to me at actually more regular basis instead of, this speed or this accuracy, that is more important to me. So you do discover interesting insights and motivations of different stakeholders if you are more open with them on what's driving your focus of the team.
Data technology is constantly evolving. What are some of the most exciting innovations in this field that you're currently seeing?
I think probably those two parts to what you said are interesting to me, because I can see a lot of innovation happening in data management and in data trends and data technologies. Where I'm more interested in, I think, is probably how those can be applied to business cases. Again, it sounds very, because I've got kind of like a half data hat on, half business hat on all the times. What I'm more interested in is to see how that can actually pass a certain barrier of, taking some of the pain points away that we mentioned actually earlier in the podcast. So some of the things on actually siloed databases, which I think data fabric technology does seem to address that. If you have a certain level of metadata, bringing all that together without having to do, massive integration jobs, you're able to see all that piece come together. I think that sounds interesting, which can take some of the pain points away of integrating large and different siloed data lakes and different databases. I think those kind of technologies seem interesting. Again, I've not been too close to that, so I can't really comment too much about what that looks like today, but as a data professional, I think that's probably a space that is interesting, how that develops and matures, because as I understand, it's fairly new. And I'd say from an exciting point of view, and being part of the data science team, I am interested in AI, but the less gimmicky version of AI, and see how we can, almost progress and upgrade that to a point where it is commonplace. Like how you said, I think just 5 minutes ago, that people were saying what's email and what's internet and all of that. I think if people are kind of talking about AI right now, even though they don't know what it means. I think what's probably interesting what's going to be interesting is when I think it's more subtly there behind us, that if we're able to integrate applications and integrate that into our day-to-day more subtly, not just in advertising, like it is today in ads and is trying to sell us stuff, but actually improving our day-to-day life and improving some of the pain points that you and I just spoke about. So that's the direction I would like to see it go, and solve some of our day-to-day life pain points.
As we look to wrap up today, I'd like to get your thoughts and advice on data science, analytics, and career development.
I think what we see in career development for data science, I'd say there's few things that I've seen that worked really well, being fairly young into my data science career or the career in general. I'd say that what what advice I give to probably a really young person who's starting off is just being open-minded, and being open to learn, and of course know your stuff because you're still pretty new. But I think as more and more you go and you progress into that, you see that the actual data science aspect of it, you know your stuff, and that's probably quite repeatable, and what you're going to try if you're up to date with data science. And then actually the skills that you have to focus on are actually beyond data science, into seeing actually if I am working on data science, how am I actually presenting my findings, how am I telling the story of what I actually done, and think of it a bit like, am I selling what I'm doing well enough to the person, even if it's to my peer, even if it's to my boss. And of course that doesn't mean sugarcoating it. That means, okay, you know what, I've done this, these are insights I've found, but what is the journey? What was the journey that I followed to get to this insight? What was my thought process? I think if we are quite open in talking about it in that way, I've seen that people are able to give feedback much better, are able to see that what is working well, and sometimes get ideas as well. The trend I've seen is that there are a lot of people, of course, and this is not a wrong thing to do, is still speak fairly technical while talking to non-technical audiences. And when you do that, you automatically lose half the audience, and people who want to listen will try to endure and ask questions. But I think if you cater your audience, quite simply, I think you'll be able to see that people are more interested, and you'll be able to see that genuine feedback from people and grow more in your career. Because it's not just about, I guess, progressing towards some ladder in the organization. It's also that you want to do more work that is more interesting to the organization and more interesting for yourself. And where you end up, I think if you do less of that, is more a push and pull model, where you're just kind of waiting for, well, what's the next thing I should do on, instead of having your own, curiosity to see that, well, actually they were interested in this, so I'm going to go look further down that. And actually, I know this might work, so let me recommend that to them. So having that, I guess, channel is, I think I've seen work really well.
With the roadmap for data excellence in hand now, you're ready for the next step in your data career journey. Follow Rishabh on LinkedIn to stay updated with his latest insights. And if you're looking for more guidance in data leadership, watch our interview with Daniel Smilovich on a blueprint for building confident data teams. And this episode was brought to you by our friends in partnership at Amplitude. And so from me, Ross Webb, until next time, bye for now.